Hi, Doc Martin for KRAZ TV and the Zero Channel with two book reviews. The first one is called Lower Than the Angels, A History of Sex and Christianity. It's by Diarmaid MacCulloch. He's a scholar, and this is, to me, I believe it's a seminal work in this narrow subject. It is a book from Viking Press. There is the scholar. Diarmaid MacCulloch is a fellow of both St. Cross College and Campion Hall, Oxford, and an emeritus professor of the history of the Church at University of Oxford. His books include Thomas Cranmer, A Life, which won the Whitbread Biography Prize, the James Tate Black Prize, and the Duff Cooper Prize, and Christianity, the First 3,000 Years, a New York Times bestseller that won the Cundill History Award. He has presented many highly celebrated documentaries for television and radio, and was knighted in 2012 for his services to scholarship. He is an ordained deacon of the Church of England who lives in Oxford. What a fascinating book. I'm just about through it, but it's a wade. But it's a wonderful story. I mean, I learned so much. The Bible observes that God made humanity for a while a little lower than the angels. If humans are that close to angels, does the difference lie in human sexuality, and what do we do with it? Much of the political contention and division of our time centers on sexual topics, and 1/3 of the global population is Christian in background or outlook. In a single lifetime, Christianity or historically Christian societies have witnessed one of the most extraordinary turnarounds in attitudes towards sex and gender in human history. There have been, following revolutions in the position of women in society, a new place for same-sex love amid the spectrum of human emotions, and a public exploration of gender and trans identity. For many, the new situation has brought exciting liberation; for others, fury and fear. This book seeks to calm fears and encourage understanding by telling a 3,000-year-old tale of Christians encountering sex, gender, and the family. The message of Lower Than the Angels is simple, necessary, and timely: to pay attention to the complexities and contradictions in the history of Christianity. The reader can decide from the story told here whether there is a single Christian theology of sex, or many contending voices in a symphony that is not at all complete. Oxford's emeritus professor of the history of the Church introduces an epic of ordinary and extraordinary Christians who try to make sense of themselves and of humanity's deepest desires, fears, and hopes. Wow. I mean, to tell you, this work is amazing. So the beginning of it has foundations is part 1. 2 is families or monasteries. Part 3 is coming of Christendom. Part 4, 2 Western revolutions. Part 5 is new stories. And the epilogue, future readings, abbreviations, references, and general indexes. So, it really starts out the words and words of God, Greek, which a lot of this Western, now we have to distinguish between Western and Eastern Christianity, except that Eastern Christianity really did not get a foothold until almost after, or wasn't embedded easily until after Islam and the Muslims took over in the Middle East. And then it's Hellenism meets Judaism, and then Jesus the Christ. Then it talks about Paul and the first Christian assemblies, from Jewish sects to Christian churches. Then the coming of Christians suddenly in power. Now the Roman Empire fell in 476, so Christianity, it looks like, was coming into power, virgins and celibacy, 100 to 300 AD, and after that, the 300 to 600 were the emperors, in the mind of the emperors. So it was really the emperors who really determined the law, because there was either persecutions or like Constantine, who did convert. But see, he was Byzantine. So the Roman Empire divided from the west and to the east, and so the Hagia Sophia and all that was in Constantinople, and that then became the seat of the Eastern Christianity. So Eastern Christianity, inner Islam. Now this was part of my most favorite thing, because I learned a lot more about Islam. They were actually much more tolerant than you would really believe. Only recently, in the last few 100 years or so, since Ataturk and all of that changed, and they changed from the Ottoman Empire, that it really became Islamic versus Islamicate. So Islamicate included everybody, and they didn't mind Jews, and a Muslim man could marry Christian or Jewish women, or a Muslim woman. So, and can you imagine polygamy? He had one of each, probably, which is weird, but I didn't go into that, I don't think, too much. But anyway, Islam means submission to the will of God. Muslim means those who submit to God. And the Quran is that which must be recited. So that's what I learned. And they were fairly tolerant. And then I think it was 610 is when Muhammad got his prophetic writings and all of that. And he died in 632. And within 5 years, they already had taken up their banner and had run into Jerusalem and took over there. And then from there they started moving west, mostly. And they went all across Africa into the Iberian Peninsula. Those are called Umayyads. Abbasids took over after 770, and that was another portion. There were always fights between Sunnis and Sharia, and there were those divisions in the Muslims. But what really started out as, it was so far from the Western culture in the East, all the way up through Russia and all of that, that the dictates were allowed and mandated by the Muslims that said, you can have your religion, but, you know, they started what they called patriarchs, and they're like the heads of the church of the Orthodoxy. But Russian Orthodoxy didn't get started until after the Eastern Orthodox and the Byzantine area was first, and then it evolved more further north. So it's a fascinating story. What really caused the biggest schisms, I guess, in the thing were the bishops of the Western culture, who thought that they should decide. And, you know, as far as talking about sex and all, the priests were married or were not celibate during the early years. But after the big divisions happened between Eastern and Western Christianity, then they started slowing up the priest from doing whatever they were doing until they became mostly a celibate situation. But Mary, the mother of God, Jesus' mother, has always taken a back seat, except they wanted to explain the history in certain ways that never did iron itself out. But to tell you the truth, they thought more of Mary in the Eastern religion than they did in the Western Christianity. And Islam, believe it or not, has an entire chapter in the Quran. They're called Shurhar, and an entire chapter is dedicated to just Mary. And she's the only female figure in Islam to get this kind of recognition. So Mary is held in reverence. And there's a whole story about Jesus in there that's big with Islam. So it's all over the gamut. As far as we're talking about sex here in the Zero Channel, I can talk a little bit about. The missionary position was ironed out by the Eastern religion to show that the man on top was the dominant one. It was really all about male dominance. I don't care how you look at it. It was still male dominance, you know, even through religion and all that. And that's why there were women that could be high up in the church and all of that, but reputedly there was one female pope, but I think she hid her identity for many years, or else she got found out and thrown out or whatever. I haven't studied that about the study of the pope. But there were eunuchs in the church, and a lot of rich families would castrate their child, young males, in hopes that they would be working with emperors or be in contact with the laity of the church so that they could advance. So some priests were castrated. The castrari were those who could talk with angels and stuff. There was that kind of a idea that happened for a little while. It's an amazing story. And so I don't know how long I've been talking here, but there was the rise of Pentecostalism, the century of contraception. This was 1900 and after. Then there was a condom, sheets, and pills, and new voices for Christian women. And Choices and Lady Chatterley from 1950 and on was Awakenings New and Old, a time for judging and weaponizing sex for politics. Isn't that about the way it goes? So, it's a story without ending. Oh, they have Latin. See, it was Greek and Latin were the big predominant languages, and Latin went out in the Western and the Eastern for a while. But the Russian Orthodoxy is different than the Greek Orthodox, and that's different than Western Christianity. So between them all, it's called the Book of Abrahamic Book, and it's people of the book. So that's the three religions: Christian, Jews, and Muslim. So anyways, I could go on, but it was really kings and emperors that really pressured it, and they swore fealty to the Vatican. So that's how a lot of things got done. I'm going to leave it at that because you'll just have to get the book. There's just so much here to read. And it's a complicated read, but it's a wonderful story, and it's very concise. Of course, Dr. MacCulloch should be hailed as, well, he is a great scholar, so of Christianity, and he knows his stuff. So I'm going to let him explain this to you more in this book called Lower Than the Angels, A History of Sex and Christianity. and it's by Diarmaid MacCulloch, Doctor. Thank you for watching. We got this book at the Tucson, Pima County Public Library. Keep reading and keep watching.